Welcome back, everyone, to a Thursday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. We'll switch it up. We'll talk a little college. We'll talk a little NFL, maybe TBL as well. Stephen A. Turner does a great job Monday to Friday, live at 5, 102.7 The Game. He's down there in SEC country. And by the way, how about this? You might get a little upset, my friend. You see that little helmet right back there?
I do see it. I'm wearing my Vikings gear. Everybody says I'm brave for wearing this, but this is like all the gear I have for wintertime.
So. Listen, there are far and few Minnesota Vikings fans, but appreciate a couple moments, pal. So, you know what? We'll start. Let's start with your aforementioned Minnesota Vikings. And listen, I can't talk much because the Giants got waxed against the Philadelphia Eagles, but where are you at right now with Minnesota being a fan and Kirk Cousins and just that franchise as a whole? What it seems as though you guys either have some of the greatest wins ever or some of the worst debacle playoff losses.
Well, it's mostly greatest debacle playoff losses, but I think it's a tough spot because in the NFL you pay a mid-level quarterback like Kirk is, and history shows that doesn't equal success very often. I mean, you're either winning on a rookie scale or you're winning with a Hall of Fame quarterback. And that's where you're at. So those middle of the road guys like Dak and, they get paid. And, that's people are saying Daniel Jones right now. What do you do with Daniel? You don't pay him. I mean, I hate to say that, but history will tell you it's very hard to build a Super Bowl caliber roster when your quarterback is taking up 15 to 20% of your salary cap. And unfortunately, Kirk, I thought he had a great year. I thought in the Giants game, without Kirk playing as well as he played, we're blown out in that game. The defense is where the problem lies. But, when you start to get into those quarterback contracts and you don't draft well defensively, how do you build your roster? With a lot of aging veterans who got smoked by Daniel Jones and a mediocre receiving corps.
Yeah, well, listen, that's true 100%. I mean, pretty much practice squad, unheralded wide receivers. I've always been a proponent of Cousins. I call him Captain Kirk. And I always have defended him, right? And I actually had Minnesota and San Diego, I should say Minnesota and Los Angeles going to the Super Bowl. So that's a wash. And I had no problem being wrong on my NFC prediction as well. But to your point, I go back and everyone's talking about that 4th and 8 and the check down. People got to realize the pass rush of the Giants and Dexter Lawrence, that was the reason he got rid of the football so fast. I feel as though Cousins is a talented quarterback. And I think we can agree every quarterback pretty much, unless you're Mahomes, Brady, Rodgers in the prime, you need everything to kind of be perfect around you, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I look at that team with the wide receiver. I mean, think about this. You're eventually going to have to turn around and pay Jefferson, are you not?
Yeah, they're saying maybe this year. I read a thing that said he wanted to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league and that our GM wants to beat Bosa to the punch, because when the 49ers pay Bosa, he's going to set that standard. And so we're trying to get Jefferson's contract done before Bosa. So I don't know. And you got Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, who's one of the best up and coming left tackles in the game. You're going to have to pay him too. So it's getting to the end of where you can pay Kirk. So I don't know what, the GM's got his work cut out for him.
I think you're going to see a lot of shuffling with the quarterbacks. The Jets turn around, they hire Hackett as their OC, and right away everyone thinks it's going to be Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers either retires or he goes back to Green Bay. And the thing is, he loves to stretch it out. He loves to be the drama filled. That's what he typically does. I don't think you walk away from 60 million, so to speak. You still got Matt Ryan, who's on his last leg, right? We don't know what's going to happen with Brady. Is it going to be Miami or Vegas? I think if San Francisco beats the Eagles, and let's just say, for argument's sake, they win the Super Bowl, now you've got a young kid in Lance. You probably trade him. You got Jimmy G. You probably try to move him. And then you got Purdy. So it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop with some of these NFL quarterbacks. And the problem is, and you probably agree with this, and you guys probably talk about it on the radio, Stephen, is that it's like your hands are tied, like especially if you're Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, because he loves to stretch it out. And I think he wants to see, it's like going to the bar and seeing, the cute blonde. And then all of a sudden behind the blonde is the brunette. And you're waiting to see, can I go to the blonde first or should I wait for the brunette? That's what Rodgers does. He wants to see if there's something else out there. And I think what happens is when you do that, you kind of keep hostage the franchise.
Yeah, I thought it would have been in the Packers' best interest to an explorer trade for him last year to get all the draft capital you can get.
Yep.
You save. I get Aaron Rodgers is a generational quarterback, and I'm not a Packers guy, obviously, at all, but the things he's done in the years past, I mean, it's something you just really haven't seen much. But at the same time, I mean, paying a guy that much money, you know, why he's holding you hostage or so many other factors, it's hard to move your franchise forward. And unless he can single-handedly will you to victories like he's done in the past, but it seems like that's starting to happen less and less. It's hard. Green Bay should get what they can get. I mean, if the Jets come calling and they want to do a Russell Wilson deal for Rodgers and I think the Packers turned down a monster offer from the Broncos, a similar offer that they ended up getting Russell Wilson with. And just think if they would have done that last year, how much I feel like better off that franchise would be. So now you really just don't know because Jordan Love's going to want to play eventually. I mean, there's from a rock and a hard place. It's Brett Favre all over again.
Bingo, 100%. Two schools of thought, and I'm glad you just highlighted that. The Jets did this in 2008. They wanted to make the splash. They turned around. They got Favre. He tried to stretch it out. We know what happens in that Green Bay loss to the Giants in the NFC Championship, the pick in overtime. They start 8-3. I think they were 3-3 at one point. He threw for 5 touchdown passes against Arizona. They beat Tennessee. They beat Buffalo. And then they had some god-awful losses. They're 8-8. And then all of a sudden his arm turned into a noodle like Peyton Manning a couple years ago. He winds up 22 picks, 22 touchdowns. And then, and I don't know how you felt about this at the time, he turns around, he goes to Minnesota, and then he does the no-no where he throws across the body.
Yeah.
And I don't want to rub the salt in the wound, so to speak. But to your point, I think the Jets, if they go down that rabbit hole, then it's on them, man, because they've done this before as a franchise. And I didn't even bring up Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson is going to want Watson money. That's not happening.
No, I don't think it is. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. You know, I was firmly in the camp because Lamar Jackson's a U of L guy, and we're a U of L affiliate. And so there's a lot of Lamar Jackson folks around here. And I was firmly in the camp that he was going to move on. I mean, just all the tea leaves were looking like, oh, he's not showing up for playoff games, you know, not to support his teammates. It just doesn't look like it's ending well. And then you have that press conference with Harbaugh and those guys, and it seems like that they are dead set that he's returning, and there's no question. So that's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out, especially since they wouldn't pay him already.
Yeah.
So, I foresee them, that's lip service, and they're going to, you know, try to move him, you know, try to tag him and move him and go from there. I think he's going to be on the move.
I think a couple of things with Lamar Jackson. I can't dispute his talent. One of my buddies covers the Washington Commanders. He's been covering them for years. Really good insider. And we were just kind of throwing out teams and whatnot. And I said, well, what happens if Washington gets new ownership? They're going to want a quarterback. You go right down 95 and, Baltimore, DC, boom, here you go. I don't know. To me, Jackson, I don't believe the Ravens offense, the way it's constructed, fits Jackson right now. And I'm trying to figure out other teams, and I worry a little bit with his style of play. And everyone gets on me on social and they're like, what are you talking about? He is banged up. He missed these games late.
Missed a lot of games.
Yeah, he wasn't accessible for the playoffs, and he doesn't have an agent. So I believe it was either him or his marketing team to tweet, to shut up the talking heads that he wasn't playing possum with the injury. And you said where you guys are down in the affiliate, would you say Louisville affiliate, correct?
Yeah.
What's the buzz with him? Yeah, what's the buzz with Lamar Jackson? I mean, how is he down there? How is he received?
Well, they love him here. I mean, he's a Louisville Cardinal legend. You know, everybody thinks very highly of Lamar. He's a high character guy. He's loved in the city of Louisville. He's really, he's one of the only Louisville Cardinals outside of Teddy Bridgewater that I've ever seen that's universally loved by Kentucky fans. If you're a Louisville alum, you're not very well liked ever by Kentucky fans. But I think the Cats fans saw what he did and just respect his game. I mean, a lot of Kentucky fans, I know Matt Jones, who does Kentucky Sports Radio, says he's the greatest college football player he's ever seen. So,
wow.
A lot of love for Lamar down here. And I think the consensus is that, they're not, the Ravens haven't taken care of him. But in the Ravens sense, it's one of those things to where it's a slippery slope because you pay all that guaranteed money. And you said it, he hasn't been healthy. It's a business at the end of the day. I love the fit with Washington, though. I think Ron Rivera would, the history with Cam Newton, similar styles. I could
Yeah.
see that being a tremendous fit there in Washington.
No love for my guy, Robin Oben, Louisville guy, right?
No love.
No
No
love
Kentucky
for-
fans giving love
Oh,
to
man,
anybody outside of those two, I think.
I'll have to text him. I'll have to let him know that. So you're in SEC country, and again,
Sure.
Stephen A. Turner joining us on a Thursday edition of BYP with Q. Rich Quinones here. Check him out on Twitter at Stephen A. Turner, Monday to Friday, 5 to 6. 1027 The Game, host of Live at 5. So I was actually having this conversation earlier today when we cut a couple different shows regarding college hoops, and I maintain when you look at the SEC, and I want to get your thoughts on this, I still believe Purdue's worthy of being, the top team in the nation. I think this year's kind of been a little goofy in college hoops because, one time or another, Alabama, Purdue, Houston, North Carolina early on was a top seed. Where do you look at Alabama right now with the SEC? I know they got some big games coming up. I know that conference is pretty much stout. Can you make an argument that Alabama is actually better than Purdue right now?
Yeah. We actually talked about Purdue tonight on the show because Kentucky's coming on strong. We're making the point of Kentucky a couple of weeks ago. They didn't look like a tournament team, and now they're, looking pretty good for the tournament. And I was just saying, would you, as a Kentucky fan, do you fear Purdue? Like if Kentucky was playing Purdue tonight, do you fear Purdue? And the consensus was no. But we saw what Alabama did to Kentucky. Now, granted, that was a Kentucky team that was running a different lineup on the floor than what they've had success with over the last couple of weeks. But they dog ran Kentucky. That was an embarrassment. And so just from what I've seen, watching a lot of SEC basketball, is that this is the best team in the country, in my opinion, right now. It would be Alabama. That would be who would get my vote. Now, granted, Purdue sports the 19-1 record, and the Big Ten is a great conference in basketball. But Alabama, Houston's there. I don't know. You said it. It's kind of an uneven year. It just no one really jumps off the page. I don't know what it is. We had this conversation as well about college basketball. Maybe just doesn't. It's not putting the big names. I couldn't name 20 players in college basketball. It's so strange outside of my little bubble.
Yeah.
Back growing up though, there was I think it maybe the guys leaving after a year or transfer portal and everybody's moving around. I don't know what it is, but it's hard to identify, even with Duke, or North Carolina, who have the household names. It's just this year is just kind of strange. I don't know.
No, it's a good point. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Tennessee 17-3, Texas A&M 14-6, Auburn 16-4, Bama 18-2. Alabama's got Oklahoma. Was that over the weekend? I think it's a 2 p.m. tip-off Saturday. Auburn with the upset. Bama gets to win. I think it was 3 points over Mississippi State. I look at who you beat too, right? So Alabama at the end of the day, I think they're 5-2 in 7 games against top 25, right? But I also think sometimes what hurts these teams is how they start the season. Look, you're going to get your Liberties, your Jacksonville State, your Longwood. You're going to get those guys out of the way. Purdue doesn't really have that type of pedigree per se, resume-wise, when you think about who they've beaten. I know Tennessee's going to play Bama in February. I like Purdue. I think they arguably might have the consensus, maybe the top player in the country, and the kid, and it depends on who you listen to, how you pronounce it, and the kid in Eddie or Ide. The center, he's a big man. He's a walking double-double. They got good guard play. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because the SEC to me is stacked, but I don't think people give as much credence anymore to the Big 12 or the Big 10, right? We're so used to 4 or 5 of those teams every year coming from those conferences, getting into March Madness, Big East, ACC. It's different this year. I feel like people forgot about Houston, and Houston's had a wonderful year. Purdue slipped up. They stubbed their toe against Rutgers. It happens. But Temple turned around as a 22-point dog and just lost to Houston.
Yeah, it's across the board. You see that. You look at the scores from any given night, and there's just teams sneaking up on you. I think there's a lot of parity. I think the transfer portal has played into that a lot. I think it evens out. You no longer just not only just recruit the recruits, not only you're recruiting the transfer portal, you're recruiting your own kids to make sure they don't go somewhere else. And that's I think Kentucky's kind of done that a lot too in the transfer portal. Of course, Oscar Tshiebwe, tremendous get there, but now you look at Reeves, who's starting to get a lot of minutes, come from Illinois State.
Yep.
He's not your traditional Calipari type of recruit, but since he's been inserted into the lineup, you're seeing so much more production. And I buried Kentucky. I was ready to move on from Cal, and it's just been kind of a merry-go-round. But I'll say they're not in the top 25. But I'll tell you right now, they're playing as good as any team in the country over the past couple of weeks, and that they're a talented roster in the sense that you look at before they had their struggles, they were a top 5 team in the nation. So I think they're getting their swagger back a little bit right now, and I think the tournament's going to be just bananas. I mean, you're going to see upsets all over creation, just because I think there's a lot of teams outside the top 25 with a great pedigree that have a whole season under their belt, experience, and it's going to cost for a lot of upsets, a lot of 10s over 7s, and 11 over 6. You're going to see a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the 6 or 7s in the NFL, right? The 12 and it compares to the 12 and 5 seed in March Madness. And really, it's funny. The hottest team is Florida Atlantic, right? They're quiet. They won 18 straight games. They got Middle Tennessee, which is weird because Middle Tennessee is 13-7, and yet they're only laying 8.5. But again, story for another day. How is where you guys are? I was a big Pitino fan. I just love Pitino. Early his college days, Providence, and then I'm a diehard Knicks fan. I remember him with the Knicks, maybe not so much with the Boston Celtics. But how is when people, when you start talking about the Caliparis or the Patinos down there, is it 1A, 1B, or is it?
Well, Pitino's a bad name. I love Rick Pitino myself. I grew up watching Rick Pitino dominate with Kentucky. I say one of the team that Tubby won with was still a Rick Pitino team to me, but that 3-year stretch is about as fun as I've had as a Kentucky fan, and I love the way they played more than anything. Just the ball pressure, the up tempo, in your face style, and Louisville fans loved him as well. Of course, the controversy, kind of dampers that a little bit, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still a big Pitino guy, and I wish it hadn't gone down the way it did. I think I hope one day that Kentucky can bury the hatchet with him, because I think he's one of the greatest coaches to ever coach at the University of Kentucky.
Interesting.
But for Cal, it's been a long road of, a lot of support, and then he hasn't had a lot of success lately. And as of any sport, wins are everything. And, he's kind of had bad record against the top 25 teams, and you get all these high level recruits, and maybe you think they're going to be one thing and they're not. And then they go to the NBA and they have a ton of success. Well, they didn't have a ton of success under Cal. I remember Booker, for example, he had all this hype coming in Kentucky. He was a great shooter, didn't shoot it very well for Kentucky. And I thought, man, this kid's never going to make it in the NBA. He can't shoot. And now he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. So it's just the Cal thing. It went from about 80-20 in favor of Cal to over the past couple weeks, it's back to that almost now, but there for a while, it was about 50-50 in favor of moving on, really. So both of those guys are legendary, though.
It's crazy, though, when you think about it, all these guys, like Harbaugh found out pretty fast in Michigan, you got to win at the end of the day.
Win.
To win. Calipari won how many championships?
Yeah, one.
2012, and
with Anthony Davis, who's a generational talent. I mean,
yep.
And that's what I always point to. Now that it's just crazy. It's crazy how you would view someone so much differently over one tiny defeat, right? They're undefeated in 2015.
But that's
how
it is.
And I mean, that defines you as a coach. If he goes undefeated with that team and wins the title, his lifetime contract probably is a lifetime contract. He could lose a couple years and be okay. I think people would give him a pass. But just because he lost to Wisconsin, did not finish undefeated, that's going to be the blemish. And I mean, that loss, if you go back and watch that game, people are going to say, oh, they got a bad call. No, I mean, the rotations late in the game, it cost him. And I mean, there's been little things here or there, missed free throws at Memphis. I mean, just little
Oh, yeah.
things that reared their head over the course of his career, where he can get you right to the doorstep. But he's got as many championships here as Tubby Smith.
He cut his teeth. I mean, he came on when he had that great run with UMass.
Yes.
Remember, it was like 95, 96. And then again, right there, what happened?
Marcus Camby and those guys.
Marcus Camby, the Camby man, exactly. Louis Rowe, I believe, as well. And then he gets to jump to the NBA. Then he goes, the Nets, Sixers assistant, then Memphis. Then he has his success, then Kentucky. But you're right. I mean, it's the perception. I mean, look, the Patriots go 18-0, and it's 18-1, right? The perception is everything when it comes to sports. All right, last before I let you get out of here, what's your thoughts? Handicap for me, you got the championship Sunday, Cincinnati, and I love Cincinnati last week on the money line. I love this kid Burrow. I thought they were actually just going to handle their business. I didn't see them beating up Buffalo that bad, but they did against Kansas City. And then you've got San Francisco going into Philly to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. What are your thoughts on those games?
Man, well, I'll say this. I think the NFL's got the 4 best teams. I mean, Dallas had Dak. I mean, at the end of the day, if Dak had played better, I think they're in the mix for one of the 4 best teams. But at the end of the day, Dak ain't it. So that cost them. But, I think the NFL's fortunate to have the 4 best teams playing on championship weekend. I am just ready to watch both of these games. I think they're both just intriguing matchups. For the AFC matchup, Burrow, can he do 4 times? It'd be 4 times, right? He's beat.
Correct.
I mean, that's insane. But for Burrow, it's not, to me, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in football. I mean, because he does it. He's been doing it at times that are the most important. I mean, Josh Allen maybe had a better regular season, but Burrow has turned it on when it counts. And
let me say this real quick, not to cut you off with Allen.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said that Brian Daboll goes to New York, helps Daniel Jones cut down the turnovers. Allen's turnovers, the numbers might be similar from last year, but it's the red zone turnovers, and you can ill afford to have red zone turnovers, especially in the playoffs. And that's kind of been his bugaboo since Daboll left. So I just wanted to kind of make that point. And you're right. I think Josh Allen is a great quarterback, but I also think at times when he's pressed the decision-making, you just can't turn the ball over like that.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Josh Allen. He's got his whole career ahead of him. I don't want to judge his entire career off a couple playoff, and last year, if he touches the ball again, one more time, or the year before, was it year before or last year? The overtime, when they changed the overtime stuff, if he touches the ball one more time, who's to say he doesn't drive him down and become immortal if that rule is in place? So I don't want to bury Josh Allen, but Burrow is just, I just have that trust. He's just gaining that trust where in the big moment, you can hand him the ball. Big things are going to happen. Now, Mahomes, I think what makes Mahomes great is his ability to create outside the pocket. And now you got to wonder, I mean, how's the ankle? Let's just say he is 100%. If he was 100% at Arrowhead, even though I would go lean Chiefs, because it's just, I can't imagine that happening 4 times. But with the mobility down, Burrow in a big spot, and the way that defense, I mean, the most underrated coach in the entire NFL, head coach, assistant coach, defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. How that guy didn't get a look for a head coaching job is insane. And it's bad for all the teams in the AFC, because that means he's going to return for them next year. He shuts down Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And so I can't wait to see how the game plan plays out this Sunday in that ball game. I'm going to go Bengals in the game. I got to roll with Burrow.
So we have like what we call the back your play confidence barometer, right? So I make up words, by the way. East Coast, we do that. So
love that. Yeah, I love it.
Got flated up confidence or deflated. So it sounds like you're flated up. Your confidence is high.
My confidence is high. If Mahomes was 100%, it'd be a lot lower. But my confidence is high in Joe Burrow.
All right, so he's flated up on Cincinnati, and then you got the lesser of 2 evils, which sucks for me, the Eagles, which I'm right in their backyard.
Yes.
Philly against San Francisco. To me, what worries me, McCaffrey comes out a lot on 3rd down. I know he's banged up. That worries me. mobile quarterbacks, albeit it's been Mariota and I think Fields only 2 times this year. San Francisco kind of played the mobile quarterback. The RPOs hurt them a little bit. Now you got Jalen Hurts. You can argue the MVP. It's a hostile house of horrors environment down there in Philadelphia. This is a tough game because everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop for Purdy.
Yeah, and I thought he started to show some chinks in the armor against the Dallas defense. Like I said, if Dak doesn't bail them out and throw just 2 really bad interceptions,
Yeah.
I mean, if literally those drives just end in kicks, I'm not sure Dallas doesn't win that game. I love Shanahan, though. Like, I'm a Shanahan guy. I love the way they play. I love the way they went up front. But I just feel like this is a bad matchup. I mean, the Eagles,
Agree.
when they've been 100%, have looked like the best team in football. Everybody keeps selling them short and forgetting about them, but Jalen Hurts had an MVP year. I mean,
Yep.
That's just all there is to it. And Sirianni is the coach of the year. I mean, we debated this today on the show.
You think so?
Yes. I mean, I love what Dable's done. Like Dable took over a lesser but Sirianni took a team that, this is a 2-year process, but he took a team that was dead in the water, and I feel like last year we got them a 7 seed, built that equity up a little bit, but they were a 7 seed and they had no chance of winning that game last year.
Plus, who didn't they have last year on that roster?
AJ Brown. And I think that move alone has changed their entire offense. Make no mistake, but Jalen Hurts is also taking this game to a better level.
We started the show off when you mentioned the Giants. You take Saquon and Daniel Jones off listen, and I'm trying to be objective as possible for a team that no one thought was going to win 5 games, to win 9 games, then go on the road and win a playoff game, get to the divisional round, granted overmatched, throwing to guys no one ever heard of, the Sillses, the Hodges, Slayton, okay, Richie James, you trade Tony, you lose Robinson, Shepard goes down. You've got Saquon, still issues with the offensive line, mix and match defensively. You lose Jackson, you lose McKinney pretty much half the season. I'm trying to be objective as possible. I can't fault Sirianni. If you were to actually say you can't choose either one of those, who would you choose as a third option? You know who I would say? Shanahan. No,
Shanahan. Okay. I go Doug Peterson only because they had the first pick in the draft. That they were the worst team in football a year ago. It was a complete train wreck under Urban Meyer.
No doubt.
And then he comes in and takes that team to a playoff victory.
Yeah,
much like David.
100%. But Shanahan loses Trey Lance, loses Jimmy Garoppolo, and then a kid nobody ever heard of has won how many games now? 11?
Yeah, they haven't lost with him. So
yeah.
I've got no beef with that either. It's crazy that we have this discussion and all those guys are worthy. That's the thing. Any one of those guys would win. I wouldn't bat an eye if Dable won. Very deserving. There's a top 5, I think, nominees. Kevin O'Connell won 13 games in his first year, with a defense giving up 400 yards a game. And I mean, not to say that he deserves the award, but I think he deserves to be nominated. I mean, it's crazy to me that he wasn't. But that being said, that shows you how many coaches in the league have done, there's a lot of great coaching jobs around the league. I think all those guys are worthy.
So it sounds like you're a little deflated on the 49ers.
I am a little deflated on the 49ers. I think the clock strikes midnight on Purdy.
There you go. So he says no. He likes so Eagles and Cincinnati. That would be a hell of a Super Bowl. I would imagine
the 2 best
right
teams.
now. I'm wondering if Cincinnati would be favored by maybe 2.5. I think they would be the favorite in the game.
I think they would be the favorite. Like I say, a lot of people have kind of, I don't know what it was, but when Hurts got injured and the way they ended the season, it almost felt like the media kind of forgot about how good Philly was. And I think that's a mistake. I think I'll go you one better. I think Philly wins the Super Bowl. I think they're the championship team. And I know it stinks. Listen, Eagles fans got with me today about 38-7 in 2017. So they never let me live it down. I get it.
Let me tell you something. That was a friggin' disgrace. That game was over before I even sat down and had my first hot toddy.
It was a disgrace. That's what we do. We get in big games, and that's what we do. 41-0 the Giants. You remember that one in 2000?
Are you listen?
41-0.
Listen, 7-0. kickoff, boom, you guys fumbled. Greg Camella back in the end zone. That's all she wrote. Yeah. And
Game's
funny,
over.
funny story before I let you get out of here. There was actually a writer at the time that predicted that exact score.
That's insane. That's insane, especially with the offense. Robert Smith, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Dante Culpepper was the MVP candidate that year.
I mean, I'm not going to bring up 98, but I'll tell you what bugs the hell out of me. Hold on a second. The wild card game in the rain in Giant Stadium, to this day, Jake Reed was out of bounds. To this day, Jake Reed was out of bounds.
Thank God they didn't have 4K cameras. That was the old onside kick game, right? Yeah. I watched that one not too long ago. That's pretty good.
That was Chris Callaway just come up with the ball, on the onside kick. That was 98. I think 98 was brutal for you guys because that year,
we did a whole segment. Here's the thing. 2009 popped up on my Twitter feed the other day where the Favre across the body, and I never rewatched that game. Gutted me because I thought we were winning that game, and I thought we would win the Super Bowl. In 98, we were unbelievable, but Elway and the Broncos, that's not a gimme.
No, fair point.
That would have been a tough. I think we would have been favored, but I don't know that we win that game. But I'll tell you this: with Favre and them, if they win in the Superdome, they're going to blow the doors off the Colts in the Super Bowl. That one's always been the one that's gutted me more. We opened the show the other day and started talking about our worst gut-wrenching defeats. And we have a text line, and just everybody started flooding the text line with their worst, most gut-wrenching fan losses. And it was a pretty fun show to kind of have some therapy.
I still, as if you're talking just in football, for me, 1988, because the Giants can never beat, Parcells can never beat Buddy Ryan's Eagles. They just never did. But last game of the season, Giants just need to beat the Jets to get in, and friggin' Jets are home at Meadowlands that day. Giants lose late on a touchdown. And, as a kid, it was different watching the games because NBC used to do the cut-in. And all I remember is watching the cut-in of Kenny O'Brien out tuned in the back of the end zone, and the Giants missed the playoffs. That same year, there was a blocked field goal, Giants and the Eagles, and they advanced the ball, and Clyde Simmons ran it in. That screwed the whole Giant season. Okay, fine. I'm okay with that. 89, they arguably had the better team than they did in 90 that year. They lost to the Rams. If you look at my Twitter feed, I have Flipper Anderson and Jim Everett. They constantly troll me with that play. They constantly troll me. So that was a bad loss. I don't like the Minnesota loss. I refuse to watch the Deshaun Jackson punt return. I won't watch it. There are just some games
on Christmas. Is that Christmas? I remember the little bulbs being
2010,
around.
2010.
Yeah, I remember
2010. I won't watch that game, and I won't watch when they imploded against the 49ers in 2003. That game was over. Friggin' Jeremy Shockey catches the touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone. So I have my bugaboos as well. So trust me.
But at least you have plenty of great ones to turn on. I have divisional round victories to turn on. You have Super Bowls defeating undefeated Patriots and stuff to turn on. At least you got that.
I'll tell you, it's funny you mentioned Minnesota. One of my favorite interviews ever, I interviewed many years ago when I was at a Fox Sports affiliate in Delaware, Joe Kapp.
Oh, yes. That's why I'm a fan. My dad was a Joe Kapp, man. He loved Joe Kapp. And I've seen a lot of great interviews with Joe, talking about the Canadian Football League and stuff too.
Yeah, and he was in The Longest Yard.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, our segment was supposed to be 10 minutes. It went on and in radio, got to cut the breaks, legal ID, get the spots in. It went on for 25 minutes. Then after,
sometimes you can't.
Yeah, he gave my producer his cell phone. He's like, "Oh, you guys call me up whenever you want me to get back on," and blah blah blah. But yeah, it was good stuff. Hey, where can everyone listen to the radio show?
Absolutely, man. You can go to the owensbororadio.com, or you can download the Owensboro Radio app. We're soon to be on Spotify and Apple. Be live at 5, 1027 The Game, Monday through Friday. Check me out at Stephen A. Turner on Twitter, or on the 1027 The Game Twitter page. And
you'll be doing TBL again this year too, right?
That's the plan. Yep. Thoroughbreds again this year. I look forward to it, man. It's a great league. And we got a great following down here, and just hoping that everything goes smooth. Right. We haven't had our kickoff meeting yet, but the plan is we're doing it again.
All right, brother. Well, listen, man, I'm glad I finally got you on. Now we got some common interest here with some bad debacle losses. I'm gonna
Oh
hold
yeah,
you to it though. If the Eagles friggin' win, I'm gonna be very disappointed in you on that one.
man,
But
it hurts me too. And
yeah,
I'll have to get you on. We'll have to get you on the show sometime.
absolutely. I would love to do it, but appreciate you jumping on a Thursday edition of BYP Pal. Thanks, Stephen.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night.
You got it.